Welcome to Raised Veyebrations Tarot. I just want to start out by saying, if you're here, I'm so grateful that you are. This is a very new journey for me, teaching, recording myself, YouTube, putting myself out there. It's all very new and scary. But I feel like I have a lot of really good messages to share, and I'm just not going to keep it in anymore. So here we go. So what is this channel going to be? It's pretty much going to be deep dives on every tarot card, and other than that, I have no idea how it's going to shape itself out. I feel like for me, like, you can study tarot all you want, but the real connections that I have been able to form have just been like when I can really feel what it's like to be in a tarot card. So that's kind of just what I'm going to be sharing with you, kind of just this weird human experience, how we can relate it to each tarot card. So some videos will just be like on one tarot card and it'll be a deep dive into it. Some might be on multiple tarot cards. And I also don't know exactly what this will look like, but I'm definitely wanting to tap into collective energy, the collective unconscious. So I don't think I'll be doing collective readings on here, although maybe it will turn into me doing that sometimes. I mean, that'd be really cool, because I do love a collective reading, but I'm thinking more so like I am not going to share a video just to teach you about it. I'm going to be sharing it in real time when I'm feeling that energy. So like, I have a bunch of ideas that I had written down when I had previously been feeling that energy, and I don't really think I'm going to share those videos until I am feeling it again. Right now, as I'm recording this, I'm really like in the fives, and I have an idea of making a video on the fives and grief. So if I am still feeling that way when I'm done releasing this video, then I'll be making that. If I have another idea that pops into my brain, then I'll be making that. I just, all that to say, I just want it to be like something that other people can benefit from at this moment in time. I feel very connected to the collective energy. I listen to a lot of collective readings, and I always resonate, and I'm like, wow, everybody is feeling this way. It's really cool. And so I definitely want to tap into that more, and I'm just hoping that the messages I share will resonate and just help us all feel comforted and less alone, because we're not alone. We're all doing this together. It's really hard, and it's also really fun, but it can be really hard. Your girl is struggling right now. So we're gonna do it together. That's the purpose of this channel. We are living the tarot and we're doing it together. All right. So that being said, this video is going to be really different from the rest of my videos that I plan to make. This video is going to be more of like an intro to tarot lesson style video. So we're going to start the learning part of this video now, and just to give you a little outline, we're going to get into why I love and value tarot, then we'll look at the history of tarot, how to read it, how to learn it, pretty much everything you would want to know to get started on your tarot journey. And this is honestly a video that I wish I had, because my process was very scattered, and that was cool. I still got me here, but I think if I just like had a video like this that laid it out, it would have got me here sooner. So, that being said, let's get into it, and I'm really excited to go on this journey with you. So, I do actually have one more thing to say before we get into the lesson, and that is that this is one of 4 tarot projects that I'm currently working on. So, right now I'm creating my own tarot deck, and I'm also learning animation, so I'm making an animation for every tarot card as well. I also have a tarot blog, and that's on Substack and on my website. And then I have this tarot channel. And this channel here is pretty much a combination of it all. So in every video, I will be showing the tarot card that I made for the card we're discussing. I'll also be sharing the animation, and I'll definitely be reading stuff from my blog as well. So just wanted to throw that out there. And now let's actually get into the lesson. Tarot cards are composed of archetypes, which are universal symbols, patterns, and instincts representing the human experience. Because they cover universal human experiences, understanding the cards relevant to your life is extremely useful if you're looking to form a deeper connection with yourself and with the collective. Tarot is a mirror that challenges, validates, and illuminates, meaning it reflects the wisdom that we already hold and helps us trust it. Each time you give a reading, you're strengthening your intuition. Intuition is something that we all have, and it's so important to use it now more than ever, being in this time period of misinformation overload. It's time to fully remove the blindfold. We need to trust our intuition over the information and opinions of others. Intuition gives us clarity, and that clarity increases our capacity and makes us stronger. Tarot is also a great tool for self-regulation. When chaos is swirling, you need tools that you can rely on to help you regroup and take action instead of getting stuck in anxiety paralysis. I recommend it in more ways than just tarot. Yoga, meditation, art, journaling, and therapy, to name a few, are all things that have helped me build deep trust in myself to help me keep going instead of shutting down, even when things feel scary. The fear may always be there, but it doesn't have to control us, and this goes for all feelings. One of the most important lessons tarot has taught me is how to understand my emotions, using them as a compass instead of shutting them down. Your emotions have a purpose, and you can use them to your benefit. All of this leads me to sharing the purpose of this channel, helping people understand how to use tarot as a mirror with the goal of building unconditional self-trust and clarity. I'm really hoping this channel feels like an accessible and enjoyable way to learn tarot. In my opinion, the largest barriers to learning tarot are intimidation and lack of resources. Not everyone can pay for a class or feels they have the time to dedicate to one. Most things I've learned to do are self-taught. Learning 78 cards can seem daunting, but it's really not if you just accept that you will slowly learn them over time, and trust that you really can have a strong practice before you have them memorized. I've studied the basics of each card, but deep dives where they can really resonate with me is what has helped me understand them the most. Now for the history of tarot. I want to put out a disclaimer that these timelines are estimates based on my research, and apologies in advance if I'm not pronouncing everything correctly. So, tarot was inspired by playing cards, which first originated in China in the 9th century. The second form of playing cards were the Mamluk playing cards, which originated in Egypt around the 14th century, and were composed of 4 suits: coins, cups, swords, and polo sticks. Sound familiar? The first tarot deck was created in Italy in the 15th century during the Italian Renaissance, where 22 cards that we now refer to as the major arcana were added to the popular 56 cards used in other decks, which we now refer to as the minor arcana. That deck was the Visconti Sforza Tarot. Around 50 years later, another deck, the Solabusca Tarot, was created. At that time, tarot decks were used for card games, not divination. By the 16th century, more tarot decks were created and popularized throughout Europe, and the first texts on using tarot for divination were written, primarily by French occultists who associated the cards with ancient Egypt. The Romani were very likely the first to use tarot as a divination practice, but unfortunately, much of their history around this has been erased. They had a rich history of fortune-telling through cartomancy, a practice passed down through generations long before it became widespread. Originally from northern India, they began migrating to Europe around the 13th century, using fortune-telling as a survival trade as they were met with persecution. They no doubt had a huge role in shaping the way tarot is used today. The iconic Smith Rider-Waite deck was first published in 1909, created by artist Pamela Colman Smith and author Edward Waite, who commissioned her to make the artwork for the deck. This was the first deck to have all 78 fully illustrated cards, meant to be used for divination. A lot of people know this deck as the Rider-Waite, as this was the title used when the deck was first published. They included Rider to represent the publishing company, William Rider and Son, but did not include the name of the actual artist. Sounds like sexism to me. Unfortunately, Pamela Colman Smith was paid very little to make the deck and received no royalties or credit. She didn't receive widespread recognition until the 1970s, after she had passed. Like I said, a lot of people still know this deck as Rider-Waite and have not heard of Pamela Colman Smith. Decks are now published as Rider-Waite or Smith-Waite. When referring to this deck in general, I just call it the Smith Rider-Waite to just include everything. I've also definitely heard it called Smith Rider-Waite, so we're going with that. And the images used in this deck are influential to many of the tarot decks we see being reinterpreted today, including my own. More recently, tarot has been gaining popularity in the psychology field, with therapists using the cards as tools for decision-making and empowerment. From a card game to a divination tool to psychotherapy, tarot has had a long history and holds the flexibility to be used for whatever purpose best fits your needs. Now let's get into how to actually read tarot. First off, you don't need to know anything to give yourself a reading. Literally, all I knew about tarot when I started was to just ask a question and pick a card. And it worked. So you can really just do that. You also don't need to use tarot for traditional fortune telling. There are so many ways to interpret these archetypes, and we are constantly rewriting our future with every action we take. Therefore, we can change it. Knowing this, you can think of the cards as representing the lessons you are being invited to work through, instead of what event will happen to you, using them in a more therapeutic way. With that being said, here is some basic insight into how to give a reading. First, I set an intention for the reading. In my head or out loud, I say something like, I'm inviting in my spirit guides who are here to guide me toward my highest path. Then I say what's on my mind to give context to the reading, and then I ask my question. I also tend to say all of this while I'm shuffling, and I'm going to show you how I shuffle and choose cards, but there are lots of other ways if you want to look up a video and explore that. I'm just going to show you what I do. So, the way that I shuffle is just like picking up the cards and kind of just putting them behind the deck, if that makes sense. Hopefully. I just kind of mix it all up. And then if one flies out while I'm shuffling, I do use that card. So now I'll just do it kind of how I actually do it. Like that. I'm gonna see what it is. So, 9 of Cups. Not that it matters. I'll look into that later. But yeah, that's how I like shuffle them. And then once I'm actually like ready to pick a card, usually my favorite method is just spreading them out and picking whatever one like comes to my mind first. So just like this, and then I was drawn to this card, so I'm going to pick that up. Eight of Swords. That card is haunting me right now. Yeah, so that's usually how I do it. Another way that I do sometimes is, so you split the deck in half, and then you hold this top half with, like so. So, middle and ring finger up top here, pointer finger on the side here, and then thumb on the bottom. And then I'm just kind of holding this and swiping each card from the top down with my thumb. So, just like this. And see, like, when I do that, like, cards be flying out. So sometimes I like to do that. Really just depends the mood I'm in. And oh my god, Five of Swords. I be picking Five of Swords left and right too. Eight of Swords, Five of Swords. Hello. Goodbye. Now let's get into what type of questions you should be asking your deck. I want to start this out by saying you really can ask any question you want, but my advice would be to at least try to stay away from yes or no questions and try to be specific. Sometimes it can come out as an energy reading if it isn't specific, which isn't necessarily bad because energy readings can be really helpful when you want them, but it can be confusing depending on what you're looking for. For example, I once went to my deck about how a conversation I was going to have would go, but I just asked for cards on the conversation instead of formulating a specific question. The cards came out showing exactly how I was feeling about the situation, making me think it would go poorly. When it actually didn't go poorly, I realized that the cards I chose were just mirroring how I felt in the moment because I didn't specifically ask how it would go. Next time, instead of saying, I'm wanting cards about this conversation, I would say, how is this conversation going to go? If the answer isn't clear from the card you picked, you can just ask follow-up questions. I like to treat it like a conversation. And honestly, a lot of times, like, the most insight I get is when I am just going back and forth with the deck, asking multiple follow-up questions. Now, if you don't have a question in mind, you can just ask something like, what's the message I'm meant to hear today? You can also have your cards ask you the question by saying something like, what is a question I should be asking myself? When you get the card, you can kind of just like get that question by what the lesson is in the card. So let's say you pick 10 of Wands. So the message in 10 of Wands is that you're carrying all these heavy wands and you need to put some down. So the wands are representing like all of the responsibilities you carry, and maybe you don't need to be carrying all of those responsibilities. So if I got 10 of Wands for the question, then I would just ask my deck, what are some responsibilities that I don't have to take on anymore? And then you pull for that question. So that's just like an example of how that could go. You can also do a spread. So an easy starter one would be past, present, future, like an energy reading. Or you could do what should I be releasing? What should I be calling in? Or you can look up a spread really on any topic. There are so many out there. Once you pull your cards, try to see if anything comes through intuitively before looking at a guidebook. Sit with the cards, journal about them, and I do have to say this, please use your brain instead of AI. Obviously, you can do whatever you want, but this is my opinion. With tarot, we're strengthening our intuition. With AI, we're weakening our intuition. Like, you're asking a robot instead of yourself. It's just please don't do it. We need to move away from the need to get the answer to things immediately. Even if it doesn't make sense from your intuition and your guidebook, just give it time to sink in. Okay, AI rant over, but there will probably be more in future videos. If AI has no haters, then I'm dead. Once you're done with your reading, end with a thank you to your guides. I also want to mention another way to use tarot, which is intention setting. There are so many ways to do this, but basically it's just using the energy of a card for a specific purpose. Mainly, I just do this by putting them on my altar, and before I had an altar, I would just put them on my dresser. Right now, I have the star out because I'm really needing some gentle cleansing energy. So, if there's a card whose energy you're wanting to call in, you can just ask your guides to bring you that energy and put the card out. Simple as that. I think this is a really nice way to use tarot in general, but especially when you're really not feeling like you're needing any more information and you're really just wanting some support. So that's when I use that method mostly. But I always have something out on my altar and I just switch it out when I need to. We're almost done, and this section will be pretty short because I'm really just going to go over big picture concepts. This is just going to be a rundown of how you can look at the deck in categories and study accordingly. So, tarot consists of 78 cards. 22 of those cards are major arcana cards, and 56 of them are minor arcana cards. The majors represent bigger picture archetypes, and the minors are smaller lessons that you typically move through more quickly and are easier to digest and control. When you're learning tarot, I think it would be best to start out with learning the story of the majors. The 22 majors tell the story of the human experience and can be divided into 3 categories. There's a lot of different wording I've seen used for these 3 categories, but the ones that make the most sense to me are life, death, and rebirth. And I learned that from Lindsay Mack, who I believe got the 3 category idea from Rachel Pollack. Excuse me if I'm wrong. But anyway, Lindsay Mack has a podcast episode explaining this really well, and I will talk about that in a few minutes in the resource section. There's also a planet or zodiac sign associated with each major, which can be really helpful if you're into astrology. For the minors, there are 4 suits, each associated with an element. Swords are air, wands are fire, cups are water, and pentacles are earth. A nice way to learn these cards is to learn about the meaning behind the elements that go with each suit, and then learn the numerology. That way you can just pair the element with the number on the card. So if you pull Ace of Cups, you know that cups are water, which are emotions, and wands are new beginnings. So Ace of Cups represents new emotional beginnings. I also recommend learning the story of the suits just like with the majors. And lastly, you have the court cards, which consist of pages, knights, queens, and kings. So same thing as above, learn the meanings and pair them with the element. So for example, kings are leadership, water is emotions, so King of Cups represents emotional maturity. I also want to finish this up by mentioning reversals. Each card does have a different textbook meaning reversed, but when I pull a card reversed, I usually just take it as either I'm resistant to the card's message or that I've been in the card for a while and am moving out of it. So basically, it has the same meaning as right side up, but with some more context. Don't be scared of them and take them with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, it's your intuition over the official definitions, and sometimes I kind of ignore the reversals anyway. I honestly didn't start reading reversals until this past year because I was scared of them, so do whatever you feel is best, and just know that the most important rule in tarot is that there are no rules, so don't get too hung up. Really just trust your intuition, and that will take you further than anything else. Now I want to give you some resources to help you continue on your tarot learning journey. I've spent a lot of time gathering tarot resources and thought I'd save you some time and share what I've found. There are a bunch of websites with free resources. Tarot for the Wild Soul, Mystic Mondays, Biddy Tarot, and Little Red Tarot all have free guidebooks and more on their websites. For podcasts, my favorites are Tarot for the Wild Soul by Lindsay Mack, and episode 14 is the one I mentioned earlier that describes the structure of the major arcana. The Tarot Diagnosis by Shannon Knight, which is focused on the combination of tarot and psychology, and Moonbeaming by Sarah Faith Gottesdiener, which, disclaimer, isn't a tarot podcast, but a lot of her older episodes are on tarot cards, so if you just type in a card you're wanting to learn about, she probably has an episode on it. But also in general, you should just listen to this podcast because it's one of my favorites. Okay, for books, disclaimer, I've only read one of them because I've really just learned through classes, podcasts, and practice. But here are the books I think would be helpful. Tarot for the Wild Soul by Lindsay Mack, shocker. This is the only one I've read, and I highly recommend it for a more therapeutic and non-traditional way of reading tarot. A Walk Through the Forest of Souls by Rachel Pollack. And Rachel has a lot of books on tarot. I think any of them would be good, but this one stood out to me and is on my personal list to read. But I believe Rachel's most popular is 78 Degrees of Wisdom, so that would probably be a good one as well. There's also Tarot for Yourself by Mary K. Greer, and this is a super popular beginner-friendly one and is more of a workbook. And then Tarot and the Psychology of the Soul by Mariana Lewis. This is a new book, and I will definitely be reading it. It's high up on my list because I'm really into the psychological aspect of tarot. And then for tarot decks, so if you're looking to buy a traditional deck, I recommend buying the Smith-Waite version over the Rider-Waite to support giving credit where it's due. You could also get Tarot Vintage, which is the same artwork, just with a vintagey look. I really like the vibes. There's also Your First Tarot, which just has a really nice color palette, and there's keywords on the deck if you're into that type of thing. And then if you're wanting a more unique deck, Mary Evans is an artist with multiple tarot and oracle decks out. I have the Divina Tarot deck and the Iris Oracle deck, and they are my absolute favorite go-to decks. Just super unique. I absolutely love Mary's art style, and it's been really inspiring for my own art as well. So if you like my art, then I think you would like Mary's art as well. And then you can also just search on Kickstarter to help an independent artist fund their deck. There's so many cool new decks on there, and I will likely be starting one for my deck. Or you could just go to your local witch shop and pick whatever one calls to you. I also just wanted to say that you do not need to be gifted your first tarot deck. I'm debunking the myth here. Just go buy one. I promise you'll be okay. We're finished! I truly feel like this is all the information you need to know to get started on your tarot journey. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You could have picked any tarot video, but you picked mine. I hope you learned a lot. Stay tuned because deep dives on every card are coming up soon. Bye!